It's that time.
Greetings and salutations, everyone.
Happy Valentine's Day and all of that other stuff there.
Yes, all of
Yes.
that, all of that other stuff.
Yeah, that other stuff. We are blessed to be here today, and we are grateful that you are with us.
Mm-hmm.
We give life, love, and the pursuit of happiness just because that's what we do.
That's what we do.
But we want to give thanks for your presence and wishing you all a happy Valentine's Day, meaning that the love that is to be expressed is what we are bringing forth as instruments of love, which is interesting because today's reading is Speak to Us of Pleasure, and I'm sure on the day of Valentine celebration, of a day of a celebration of loving hearts, Speak to Us of Pleasure is brought to us by a hermit of all things, which is pretty interesting. Because, you know, a hermit is often imaged or pictured to remove himself from the pleasures of life. He doesn't want to be bothered with people. He doesn't want to be bothered with things. He just wants to be left alone for the most part. That's my understanding thereof. I am king, giver and receiver of a deeper wisdom. I honor the divine in you and those who come before us, which are our ancestors, ascended masters.
Hi, Mondo.
The loving energy of all wisdom and divine knowledge. All of that. And in so doing, we bring the purifying light of God, the Arlene. Which, if you turn that around, Arlene Kahet, Kahet meaning purifying the light of God.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, we are doing our, hey Mondo, blessing for, we are doing our reading of Kahlil Gibran, the prophet. We're on page 70, which is Speak to Us of Pleasure. I find it interesting. I had to do some research on this one because there's some words that are in here that kind of threw me, and I wanted to make sure that I was in alignment with what that's about. But I've been studying very hard recently in regards to getting a presentation together. So I've been all caught up. I told my wife I had to go into quarantine. She paused.
Yes, I did. Hey, yes.
But
Yeah, especially in today's, and I'm not the only one, that especially in today's climate, using that word is, has some meaning, some different connotations and meaning. And I'm like, okay, you need to explain yourself.
well, that's what her thoughts were because she was silent for a long time. And so I explained to her that it's necessary that the deadlines that I have, I need to make sure that I capture those deadlines and make my presentation what it needs to be, which, time permitting, I may actually bring that presentation to the stage of Facebook and maybe even YouTube. But it is for a conference that's going to be happening on the 26th, the weekend of the 26th, the following weekend, which will be in March, and the weekend following that. So it's called Keep It Real Conference. And you may want to actually look to tune in on that because you can find it online. Keep It Real Conference. And with me being so into spirituality because I just seem to find that a place to hang out, you may find it very interesting and enjoyable at the same time. With that being said, do you have any kind of
So the word I would have used is sequestered when he mentioned he needed to keep himself in quarantine.
Let's see, which is probably a whole lot better than isolation, because then she might not come home. I don't know. She might not come home if I left quarantine right there by itself. I was like, you was just here. Come on now.
All right. Hi, Sharon.
Blessings, blessings.
All
Happy
right.
Valentine's Day to everyone.
Yes. So shall I begin?
Sure. Matter of fact, you can read the whole section down to Freedom Song, and then I'll go into what's necessary.
Then a hermit who visited the city once a year came forth and said, "Speak to us of pleasure." And he answered, saying, "Pleasure is a freedom song, but it is not freedom. It is the blossoming of your desires, but it is not their fruit. It is a depth calling onto a height, but it is not the deep nor the high. It is the cage taking wing, but it is not space encompassed. I, in very truth, pleasure is a freedom song.
And I fain would have you sing it with fullness of heart. Yet I would not have you lose your hearts in the singing. So I wanted to stop there because I thought it interesting. One, the word encompass is different than what I imagined it to be, because encompass is defined as in this space, when it says it is the caged taking wing, but it is not space encompassed, meaning that you can take wing, but encompassed is all of space and all of the fullness thereof. But that's not what's happening when you take wing. For your space is even that which is the space of which you utilize, but not all space. So I thought it interesting that a hermit who visited the city once a year also came before Al-Mustafa was set sail. Now, to me, this would appear to mean that there's a possibility that word either got to the hermit or he was already there. Now, a hermit being isolated from everything else, who would have told him? Somebody who had love for the hermit, someone who knew that the hermit and Al-Mustafa had maybe some kind of communion, and wanted the hermit to know that Al-Mustafa was leaving and was probably not returning. So he came forth and said, "Speak to us of pleasure." Like I said earlier, the hermit is closing himself off from everybody. He's not trying to associate with nobody. And sometimes this would be considered the monk. You know?
Yeah, Dice says, good point. The hermit could have already have been there.
Yeah.
I'm sort of inclined.
What's up, Dice? Hey, Jasmine. I got a graduation picture of yours. I'm going to see if I can send it to you.
I'm inclined to think that Al-Mustafa probably went ahead and heard about the hermit and then, went to visit him, since he was in the area anyway.
No. This is Al-Mustafa may have visited the hermit, yes, at some sense in time. It says a hermit doesn't necessarily mean isolated in that sense. It could mean that he simply sits and observes everything, which is understood. I can go with that. But here it says he only visits the city once a year. So he may have binoculars. Well, not in accordance to this book. I don't think they may have had binoculars back in those days because there were seafaring people as well. So he, I think, would have been one that spyglass, yeah, that kept himself distant from the people for the most part because he visited the city once a year. But he came forth and said, "Speak to us of pleasure." And when it says pleasure is a freedom song, but it is not freedom. I said, okay, I can buy some of that. Because the song brings a mood, brings an experience that is within you, but it is not the experience. You know what I'm saying? A song can make you feel good, but what you're singing about you may not be doing. All right? And we know definitely that's the case with a lot of these rappers when they go ahead and do what they do and say what they say. But then I remember, who was it? That was Magical. They were doing the song, and nobody paid attention to what the lyrics was. And I think it was "Move, Get Out the Way." Oh no, fights out, about to punch your lights out.
Isn't his name Mystical?
Mystical.
Yeah,
What is it? Musical? Mystical is what I meant. Yeah. And so then when they asked him what he was doing, he told you what he was doing. But no one picked up on what he was doing, and all the radio stations were playing it like what he was doing was okay. But what he was doing wasn't supposed to be played. What are you doing?
Let's just say, oh, sorry, Ludacris.
Ludacris, it was his song.
Okay.
But Mystical was one of the artists on that album.
Okay.
Yeah, on that cut.
Okay.
Yeah, alrighty. Because when he came in, it was like so funny. I tell you. Yeah, thanks, Dice. Yeah, that was funny.
It's really funny because that song does put him in a mood. I don't want to be in the car with him when it's on.
Yeah. You know, back in the day, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, it is the blossoming of your desires, but it is not their fruit. With that being said, you can see the plant budding, right? And its bud actually reaches a place of where it blooms, right?
Okay.
And then it blossoms forth. But of a fruit tree, this is just indicating that there is fruit to come. Every blossom on a fruit tree is the place of which the fruit comes forth.
Okay.
So, it is the blossoming of your desires, but it is not their fruit. Okay? Now, this is pleasure we're talking about. Okay? Like, let's say, for example, this would be, by theory, the foreplay. Okay? It is the blossoming of your desires, but it is not their fruit.
Okay, well, I wasn't necessarily going to use that analogy. Yeah, that was, you know, and I would like for us to kind of move forward because I do have some things to actually say
go ahead.
About we read further.
Well, let me finish what we're doing here.
Yeah.
It is a depth calling unto a height, but it is not the deep nor the high. Now that is what I thought interesting. Because although pleasure is calling to a height, pleasure is neither one of these. But it says it is the caged taking wing. But it is not taking all the space there is to bring forth its wings.
Mm-hmm.
In very truth, pleasure is a freedom song, and I fain would have you sing it with fullness of heart, because you wouldn't. Yet I would not have you lose your heart in the singing. So yeah, express it, but don't die from it. You know what I mean? Don't put your all into it. Don't go full blast, because it's not the full blast. That pleasure is not the full blast. Okay? So it says, some of your youth seek pleasure as if it were all. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's not the full blast. And they are judged and rebuked. I would not judge nor rebuke them. I would have them seek. For they shall find pleasure, but not her alone. 7 of her sisters, and
7 are her sisters.
7 are her sisters, and the least of them is more beautiful than pleasure. Now, we're talking about the Kundalini here, the 7 chakras,
Okay.
okay? And it is the root chakra is that place.
Well, the root, I would say the root in the sacral. Yeah,
Right, the
because
sacral is below the root, right?
No, the sacral is above the root. But the sacral has everything to do with pleasure.
Okay, okay. And so, in identifying that 7 are her sisters, and the least of them is more beautiful than pleasure, it's all interconnected. The Kundalini is the aspect of flow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You don't want your chakras clogged or blocked.
Mm-hmm. Which is the reason why he talks about not rebuking your children when, or judge them for their desires. Because I think that the much of the programming that young people get is in their formative years in regards to what it whatever whatever they are doing. So I'm having a memory of when my mother talked about how she used to work on an obstetrics ward, and even babies sought pleasure in their own bodies, even when they are young. It's a very sensory type of experience. And one of the things that she found interesting was that many of the babies were really into sort of pleasuring themselves. And I think that, if a parent sees that, it could be a little disconcerting. So you don't necessarily want to, even at that young age, to rebuke the child or make the child feel shameful, because what you end up doing is that because of that initial programming of the shocked response that a parent could have, would would cause the child to feel a deep sense of shame about it and cause a blockage of that particular chakra or whatever it is that's associated with that chakra. I know that for myself, it used to be the throat chakra. There's some things I could not say.
Okay, because it blocked. Right,
yes,
the blockages.
and yeah, I spent much of my young adult life just overcoming being able to communicate with people in an effective manner. And it was really interesting the way that it had manifested too, because I apparently came into this life with some issues with my communication skills, because it was like I was speaking a different language. Or it could have been the root, but I specifically say the throat because I had health issues associated with the throat chakra. But one of the things that was really interesting was that I came into life really sort of speaking my own language or using a great deal of nonverbal communication in order to talk, and I had to go through speech therapy in order to be in a place of communicating more effectively because I wasn't doing it. But then in addition to that, I had an awareness of the people that I was growing up around, where there were certain things that I really, I my thoughts weren't always that nice, and I knew if I had communicated some of the thoughts I was thinking at that time, it would not have turned out well for me. You know, and I know it. It's not something that, I was very well aware of what boundaries I could push, and however, I think that because of that those boundaries are not, I spent a lot of time in silence, just being in a place of observing people and not really speaking my truth a lot of times, because I did not feel that it would work out well for me. There was, that I was never really given the space to really communicate those things. But anyway, but this is just an example of not rebuking your children, because if I was in a place of being able to communicate some things, there may have been some things that had taken place in my life that I probably would have been able to deal with instead of having to wait until I was an adult.
So I'll just read through because everything you just expressed is pretty much in these words. So it says, some of your youth seek pleasure as if it were all, and they are judged and rebuked. I would not judge nor rebuke them. I would have them seek, for they shall find pleasure, but not her alone. 7 are her sisters, and the least of them is more beautiful than pleasure. Have you not heard of the man who was digging in the earth for roots and found a treasure? And some of your elders remember pleasures with regret, like wrongs committed in drunkenness. But regret is the beclouding of the mind and not its chastisement. They should remember their pleasures with gratitude, as they would the harvest of a summer. Yet, if it comforts them to regret, let them be comforted. And there are among you those who are neither young to seek nor old to remember, and in their fear of seeking and remembering they shun all pleasures, lest they neglect the Spirit or offend against it. I thought that was interesting because pretty much you surmised all of what was being said in that, because even in such expression, you shun, or you shun all pleasures, and you develop a fear of what you should do, and how you should go about doing things, when that's not what life is composed to be. So it continues and says, but even in their foregoing is their pleasure, and thus they too find a treasure, though they dig for roots with quivering hands. But tell me, who is he that can offend the spirit? Shall the nightingale offend the stillness of the night, or the fireflies the stars? And shall your flame or your smoke burden the wind? Think you the spirit is a still pool, which can trouble with a because spirit is so much more, and it's never still. Spirit is alive and full of, and vibrant. It is the aspect of pleasure in and of itself, when it's balanced correctly and seen appropriately. Oftentimes, in denying yourself pleasure, you do but store the desire in the recesses of your being. Care to share? Are you good?
We could come back to that. I'm gonna let you finish.
Who knows but that which seems omitted today waits for tomorrow? Even your body knows its heritage and its rightful need, and would not be deceived. And your body is the harp of your soul, and it is yours to bring forth sweet music from it, or confused sounds. Go ahead and share.
Okay.
Because it's interesting, it says your body is the harp of your soul, and it is yours to bring forth sweet music from it, or confused sounds.
So I think that oftentimes when people, when I got to this section, the thought that I really had was that all right, so it is my belief that when people come to their 20s, that is really a time for the individual to learn about themselves. Explore. And I have met people, grown, like older people who are older than myself, who led a very
Protected life? Or sheltered?
it could be perceived as sheltered. It could be perceived as restricted. And those desires that they would have liked to have fulfilled in their 20s, still carry over into their older years. And so they never really get to that point of being what I call young, stupid, exploratory, whatever word you want to use for it. And it never really leaves their system until they get to that place of exploring. So a lot of times I think that people live the life that they feel that their parents would have liked for them to live, and then they get into their 50s, they have their midlife crisis of the life that they had fantasized about in their 20s, because they
didn't get a chance to do it, right?
they didn't get the chance to live it, and they didn't get the chance to explore or get that, and there's a part of them that goes into that place of lamenting what it is that they feel that they have lost.
Or they end up being that not spinster, that person that, as you talk about midlife crisis, starts to do these crazy things that you'll be like, whoa, really?
Yeah, don't you think you're a little old for that? Why are you going after that young chippy right over there? Or why
Wearing those leather pants.
Yeah. They didn't really get the opportunity. To be in a place of exploration. Even, and mind you, I'm not suggesting that anybody goes ahead and do this, but especially like people in their 20s. My main thing, and I do this with my children, my main thing is, like, I tell them, you don't want to be in a place of starting your adult life early. And what I mean about adult life is, like, please don't make me a grandmama before you're able to take care of them. Or please just, be mindful that these things may happen when you are engaged with women. These are the things that you need to look for.
Well, you have to be cautious. You have to take things in stride.
And I never really want to be in a place of telling them, don't you do that. Don't you do XYZ.
Well, I think it's all about allowing the understanding that resistance in comparison to allowing isn't a balance equation.
Because repression, oh my goodness, repression of one's desires can really backfire on people, and it just, there are times when it will come up, and it will not be denied in your life's living, and will manifest in other ways. I recall there is a friend on my timeline. Her name is May Vu, and she, I think that's her name, May.
Well, it's okay because.
But anyway,
right.
I read her book, and in her book, what she talked about was being unhappy in her first marriage. And one of the things is she's a coach that actually teaches women how to step into their personal power and be in a place of owning their sensuality, and owning the fact that they are princesses, and being able to be in a place of attracting their king. But she talks about how in her first marriage, like, that she repressed much of what she lived the life that was expected of her, that was given to her by her parents, but it wasn't in sync with who she was. And she ended up having some really interesting experiences, when she started being honest with herself and being honest within her marriage. There was a period of exploration. Now, that first marriage of hers, to my understanding, did not, according to the book, did not last after she got to that point. But she did go through a period of where she did go through what would be considered her sexual exploration.
This was before, during,
This is
or
this
during
is
the marriage.
it was getting, I guess it was getting to the turning point of herself being honest and getting to the tail end of her marriage. But she finally told her husband that she was married to, I want to experience, I think it was some type of sexual experience. I believe it was a threesome. But, but she had not honored that aspect of herself from when she was in her early 20s, because she was living the life that her parents would have had for her instead of what she would have desired for herself. And then she did eventually remarry, and she remarried the person that she
Had the threesome with?
no
Oh. Because
no.
her husband didn't.
But she eventually did remarry, and she remarried to the person that it would be her king. That she had a deeper that understood her.
So, not someone that she may have already known, but this was the person that she sought out in her spiritual moving forward.
In her
And
being
he
more truthful,
materialized.
and he materialized.
I got you. Okay. Because one of the things I wanted to mention here is, as we were talking about pleasures and restrictions, I thought back on page 50, where it speaks of reason and passion. And it says, your reason and your passion are the rudder and the sails of your seafaring soul. If either your sails or your rudder be broken, you can but drift and toss, or else be held at a standstill in mid-seas. For reason ruling alone is a force confining, and passion unattended is a flame that burns to its own destruction. So in our section here, it says, even your body knows the its heritage and its rightful need, and will not be deceived. And your body is the harp of your soul, and it is yours to bring forth sweet music from it, or confused sounds. So you, in proper choosing, will emanate the thing that's best suited. You see, so the confused sounds would probably be those people who refuse not to allow passions to go their course appropriately, and then had to rush in head on and start messing stuff up, maybe. I don't know. It's just all sorts of ways of looking at it. Because the other side of the thing is, it is yours to bring forth sweet music. And I think that's the key right here. Sweet music is harmonious. So I'm going to go and read the next section. And it says, and now you ask in your heart, how shall we distinguish that which is good in pleasure from that which is not good? And he says, go to the fields and your garden, and you shall learn that it is the pleasure of the bee to gather honey for the flower, but it is also the pleasure of the flower to yield its honey to the bee. For to the bee a flower is a fountain of life, and to the flower a bee is a messenger of love. And to both bee and flower, the giving and the receiving of pleasure is a need and an ecstasy. People of Orphalese, this is you. Be in your pleasures like the flowers and the bees.
So it is. So the question that was asked is, how shall we distinguish that which is good in pleasure from that which is not good? Okay, so here's a thought. Always be honest. I know that there are going to be some people who may have challenges with this. It is best to be honest about what your desires are. Like, say, for instance, a person who's not really interested in getting married because they feel that they're too young. If
Or for whatever reason.
or
For
for
that
whatever
matter.
or
Right.
for whatever reason,
Right.
I mean, they just not ready or whatever the case may be. There would be others that want to say, well, some would get it in their head. Well, I think I'm going to try to change their mind. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Don't try to force a situation.
Don't try to force the situation.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was looking at Dice. He said, in which our bodies give off vibrations of those harmonics, which applies to what you're saying here, because the vibrations of those harmonics are going to be a part of that equation. You can't disrupt someone else's song. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like you're saying, don't force a person into a situation that they're uncomfortable with, because there's going to be some issues.
Mm-hmm.
And you were speaking on how you understand what pleasure is as compared to good or bad.
Well, let's just put it this way. I would say that. Okay, so there's a video floating around on IG. I'm sure it's on
Other websites,
other platforms, but there's this woman who's gotten really sexed up really well, and she's telling the guy he not going nowhere. he's not going anywhere. And what I would say is that particular person, the female, she may have, if the female had said something to the effect of, I'm interested in a relationship, that guy, if he had gone in and his objective was, let me just hit it and quit it, and he was really, really good to her, I would say that would be that which is not good. If he was honest about his stuff and say, you said that you're interested in a relationship, I am not. I'm just interested in just, having sex and being about my way.
when we only suspect this is a situation which you're comparing it.
I'm just,
well, I understand.
I'm just giving, I'm just, that it caught that thought came to my mind, but let's create a picture here or a scenario.
Well, I'm thinking on it because I know that there are situations to where that's what you came in to do, and we already talked about it. And now she's going to bar the door because she's telling me I ain't going nowhere because it was all of that and a bag of chips and a couple of Snicker bars. And I'm like, wait a minute, we didn't decide this.
But
So I understand what you're saying in regards to being honest about the situation.
Being honest.
But sometimes when something hits them that hard, they want to change everything that was talked about. I'm just saying.
Well, but let's just say he lied.
Okay. Right.
He was dishonest. I want to give people. So, say for instance, he was honest. He was dishonest, and he was just, she was just like another notch on his post, and he was that good to her, and then he's like, well, what, you got played, you got whatever that is. I can't stand that, but you got played, I'm not going to be with you. And she's like, what you mean you're not going to be with me? I told you that this was what I was wanting. I was wanting a relationship. Why you bother me and not, You know, yo, you think you're going somewhere? And here you have created a stalker situation with your dishonesty. Come on now.
Now, also, you got to stay mindful that women also do that as well. So they want to put notches in their belt,
you know,
and the notch that she thought she was putting in her belt ended up being a knot. She got caught in it, got caught in her throat, and then she was like, "Oh hell no!"
Regardless of
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm just
right, that's right.
You know, regardless of who, you know, whether or not it's a woman or a man, be honest about your stuff, especially you know. I would say that pleasure may not necessarily be a good thing if you are operating in a space of saying, well, I don't care.
Or negative vibrations.
You know,
let's kind of put it there.
Or whatever the case may be, but because because in those situations more damage could be caused because of the lack of honesty.
Well, here I want to interject here. It addresses the aspect that you're speaking of, the conclusion here. It says, in conclusion, the prophet's counsels how to be mindful and distinguish between good and bad pleasure. His advice echoes the sentiments expressed on friendship. He says,
Hi, Nicole.
hey, like friends, the bee and flower share an experience that is equally beneficial and a joy to them both. In other words, when balance and harmony are present, the giving and the receiving of pleasure are good. Okay? And so that I thought was poignant here, because I'm noticing, you know, you brought the equation in to where there's that selfish desire, or, you know, someone is trying to get something out of the situation. It's being a taker.
Being a taker, yeah.
And a taker in a situation of which there is no giving. This imbalance, you know. And
then here's the thing. I recall Sess shared with me.
Why do you keep calling people names?
Okay, so a friend of mine, she did change her name. A friend of mine.
Okay.
She had gone out with Gilbert Godfrey, and sorry, a celeb.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but she had gone out with a celebrity, and so when they had their date, you know, closer to maybe the tail end of the day, he says, you know, I don't think that we are. Yeah, she did change her name. I don't think we should see each other again because you are you are a nice girl. And he said he pretty much told her that he was, you know, not so nice, or he was still in that phase of his life where he was living a life.
He was still a wild child and didn't want to hurt her feelings and what have you. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. You said it a whole lot faster than I did, but thank you.
Yeah. Well, say mine for Nicole. She just changed her name last week, so. I don't know if everybody else got who that is or who that ain't is, you know what I'm saying? But I thought it interesting that I found online an analysis of this particular poem. And
hi, Angela.
Hey,
hi,
what's
Aaron.
up, Aaron? What's up, Angela? Blessings, Angie, my cousin.
I'm sure she changed it long before that. It was just last week that I it was just last week that I had talked to her.
Okay, well, 2 weeks ago she was calling her sass, so I'm just telling you, at least 2 or 3 weeks ago. So,
I'm sorry. I'm still, I will have to. I have to ask her what her new name is
well,
because
yeah,
I
well,
can't
don't
recall.
because you might be saying that back.
That's
So,
that's okay. That's okay. I'm not.
so, uh, so
Okay.
what I found here is it says the prophet first clarifies that pleasure is a freedom song, a byproduct of spiritual freedom. In freedom, a person says yes to life and does not shy away from its desires and delights. Life thus freely embraced, gives rise to a song of pleasure, the soul's freedom song. Al-Mustafa expands on this idea with metaphors that liken pleasure to the blossoms of your desires and freedom to the fruit that nourishes the soul. Pursuit of pleasure does not lead to pleasure alone, but to her 7 sisters. Here, Gibran, though through the prophet, is alluding to the pan-Indic religious system known as Tantra. Tantra works with chakras, which are the 7 energy centers of spiritual growth located along the spine. That's why I spoke of the Kundalini, located along the spine. From its base to the crown of the head, the second chakra. Oh, what are you doing?
I found this on the web.
No, I wasn't talking to you, so you need to stop listening. You're always trying to get up into somebody else's business. That's Google for you. I'm telling you, they always watching what you're saying. Okay, the second chakra, located in the pelvic region, is the seat of pleasure. The qualities of each chakra rise in transcendence as they near the crown of the head, which is the 7th chakra, housing a person's connection to God. I thought that was cool. Pleasure is a blessing. It is. This is something that I find interesting. I was told, because I do a lot of study, I do a lot of research and what have you, I was told this. I was told this. The devil, okay, whether you believe in him or not, it's just a metaphor, it's something to think about, can never provide or produce or create pleasure. He manipulates it. Okay, I wrote a poem called Desires of the Flesh. And the manipulation is what the negative forces operate, and how they operate, and how they become tricksters in this whole arena. But pleasure is a divine aspect. It is the gift of heaven. It is the gift that is planted within you for your enjoyment. Not something that you're supposed to shun, hide, or block, or whatever the societal aspects of resistance or limitation may put upon you. You see, pleasure is a gift, and understanding that the gift is more spiritual than carnal or detached from divine manifestation is the key here. When you are in the throes of an enjoyment, be grateful. Allow appreciation, allow mutuality, allow the benefits of ma'at, which is the language I like speaking of the virtues of divine laws, which is truth, harmony, order, right thinking, reciprocity, the giving and the receiving, the balance, being just. And when I say being just, I'm referring to, don't do somebody that in a way that you wouldn't want to be treated. You know? And when you absorb these and you respect these and you speak this language, then pleasure can't be nothing but enjoyable, no matter who you're with or what the situation is. And we live sometimes in a confused thought of humanity that will say that pleasure in the wrong place is hell because it's not done the way in which they say it should be done. Now, I'm not going to go any further than there, but some people have what they call certain affinities towards certain people, whether gender, in their gender or not in their gender, all of that stuff. It's not our part. It's about you and how you're relating with others. And the reason I share that is because I think it's important to recognize that each person has their own life instructions. And you can't interfere with that. It's not your duty to interfere with that. You can communicate, you can share your thoughts, and you can let somebody know if you feel that there's danger. Right?
You can really only counsel or only suggest. Oftentimes I will say, this is what I see.
Charles. It's Charlie from the fire department.
Okay. So oftentimes I will say, this is how I see it. Or if they're asking, this is what I suggest. But with all suggestions, you have free will to do whatever it is that you want to do.
Free will, the power of choice, is the most powerful thing we have. Truth be told, the power of choice is the only power we have. I wrote a book about it. Y'all need to look at it, check it out. kingsphilosophy.org. The Power of Choice, Path of Divine Royalty to Conquer Darkness.
Yes.
I'm just throwing that in there, y'all.
Yeah, he's just throwing that in. But yes, the only thing that we could do is suggest. The only thing that we could do is speak and just say, this is my experience. That oftentimes when I'm giving anecdotes, a lot of times I'm speaking from my own experience. I can say, well, this was, I had a similar situation and this is what I experienced. There are just sometimes, okay, so.
And we're talking about pleasure.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. So there was somebody who came to me and had concerns about her daughter, and in the reading in regards to the relationship that the daughter was having, the mother had some concerns about the gentleman, the person that she was involved with. And what Spirit had to share was that she had to go through stupid to get to the other side of experience. So, and mind you, the daughter had limited experience with boys and things of that nature, and so the daughter has not been behaving the way that the mother would have liked, or she doesn't like the changes that the boy's influence has had on her daughter's life. But that was the message from Spirit, that the daughter really needed to walk this path because it was a part of her experience. Now, it may not have been, it's probably not the best experience, not the wisest, experience, but it was what was necessary for the daughter to go through in order to get to a place of her own wisdom, her own innate wisdom. Because we can, the thing is that the only thing we can do really is suggest.
So, in closing, what I'll share is this. It says, pleasure has definitely transcendent value. The hermit who renounced life pleasures and chose to live in isolation came forth to ask this question. And in his asking, I see there is courage in his request. Because in asking, you learn. And in the learning, you discover. So pleasure is that beauty, that energy that is ours. And pleasure, if you miss it, if you miss that transcendent value of it, you will find that you are banning something from your life that is essentially good, because it is more spiritual than anything else we can possibly imagine. In that, we need to give thanks always, because that's key. So what they used to say back in the day, if it feels good, do it. Well, everything is not beneficial. I just want to say.
Yes, in this, let's just say in this physical experience that we're all having, what we can say about pleasure is that it's not necessarily a bad thing, but in this experience that we're having, too much of it may not be the very best thing that you could do.
Make sure you measure
yes,
wisely.
Measure.
That which
there's
you
a balance.
consume.
That there's a balancing act there.
Because if you eat too much, you might not keep it down.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they tell me too much honey in your belly gives you a tummy ache.
Do that.
That's what I heard, because I ain't need a whole bunch of honey. I ain't going for it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but the sweetness thereof, you might get caught up in it and be like, oh man, this is so good. I just can't. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But we want to honor your time. We thank you for sharing this moment with us, and we're looking forward to next Sunday, which is
the 21st.
The 21st. Dice is having something next Sunday. What's up, Dice? Oh, so next week is Speak to Us of Beauty. He's got a program happening at 7:30. So I think, this one is at. Is it Sunday? I think it is Sunday.
So, Dice, if you want to, you can leave something here in the comments about that and see if people want to check you out. Oh,
cool. Yeah, maybe that'll work.
Mm-hmm.
I got a Toastmasters thing at 3 o'clock on Sunday next week too.
Mm-hmm.
So Sunday is full. Yeah, so with that being said, what you want to say?
We love you. We bless you. We appreciate you. We thank God for you. We know that wherever you are, God is.
And a happy Valentine's Day. Yeah. Is that a heart?
Yes.
Is that?
Yes, that's a heart.
Well, I can't even begin it. So my heart have to be like this here, upside down.
Oh, good.
I feel like I'm with a zombie. I can't do it.
We love you, family.
Yes, blessings.